y'all, I'm Dan Hamilton, Marine Corps veteran and host of the Next Gen Warrior Show. As always, the Next Gen Warrior Show is brought to you by Chairman George B. Bush and our staff at the Texas Veterans Land Board. Here every Monday, we are proud to bring the success stories and the achievements of veterans in Texas and across the nation. It's something that I take great pride in, and I know our guest does today as well. Her name is Jennifer Marshall. She is a Navy veteran. She is the host of CW's Mysteries, Decoded, as well as appearing in season 2 of Netflix's Stranger Things. And also, among the many accolades that you have racked up since your military service, you were recognized as one of HillVet's 2019 for excellence in television and film. Jennifer, it's great to be sitting down with you today. How are you?
Dan, it's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Absolutely. So I know I went quickly through just a few of the many highlights that you have in your acting career, but take us back to that 17-year-old who decided to enlist in the Navy and serve her country.
That was basically a race to whatever recruiter contacted me first. I am a 5th generation veteran, so I knew that the military was in my future, and thankfully the Navy recruiter got to me first. So if you would have told me, 20-something years later that I would be where I'm at, given that I started out in the Navy at 17, I would have said no way.
Yeah,
Crazy.
so did you have any interest in theater arts? Were you singing or acting at any point through high school, or was the acting bug kind of bite you after you left the service?
No, I was actually in musical theater in high school, but to be fair, I went to a high school where my graduating class, I think, was 79 people. So it was pretty much like if you wanted to do it, you could just get up and do it. So hopefully none of those videos ever surface of me singing. The singing was mediocre at best. The dancing was even worse. Not great.
So have you gotten better at did they make you do that at auditions now? Do you have any
No. I did some musical theater when I got out of the Navy. That was one of the first things that I did, but that was in a group of mainly military. It was on Little Creek Amphib base in Virginia. And so it was like pendants, retirees, active duty. So the pool was kind of limited. And again, I hope none of those videos surface. They're all VHS tapes, so good luck.
So let me ask you about this. I'm interested in the audition process that actors go through. And I know when we actually had some time to record last week, you had an audition come up. And I always think about what are the incredible lessons that we can learn about whether, if you work in an office or if you have a blue collar job, what can we learn from auditioning? And I wanted to ask you, it's essentially you going in for an interview for a job almost on either a weekly basis or a monthly basis, which if you're somebody like me, I've been working at the GLO for 3 years, so that's not something I do. I know if you work in the tech sector, I said if you're a blue collar person, you don't audition for jobs every week. So how do you prepare that? How do you prepare for it? And what do you do to, or maybe what's some advice that you could give about what auditioning has taught you about how to succeed maybe in other parts of your career?
So I would say that what a lot of, and I haven't been on a traditional job interview in years, right? But people who do tell me that they hate interviewing. They absolutely hate it. And I always tell them that's what auditioning is. It's basically, like you said, a job interview every couple of days, every couple of weeks during the pandemic, once a month because things were really slow. And I would say what I have learned, because I've gone on other interviews for volunteer positions, things like that, I think it's important to never go into something, and this is exceptionally important for veterans who are transitioning, never go into something trying to feel out like, what do they want, or what do they want me to be like, or let me try to read their mind, because the fact is we'll never know. And sometimes the person who is holding the audition or the interview, they don't even know until you show them. So the best advice that I can give is show up, be yourself, talk about your strengths and what you could bring to the table. And that will always benefit you in life, regardless of if it's a role on TV, your dream job, a volunteer position, whatever it may be.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that. That's certainly trying to be somebody you're not, or trying to fit the role, as opposed to them trying to hire you for who you are. The latter is definitely the better way to do it. But let me ask you, how do you prepare for the auditions that you're about to go through? And I'm interested to know, how have you prepared for them this year? The entertainment industry is certainly one that's been hit hard by the pandemic. And if you're used to, being on set and being around the producers and the directors and the other actors and actresses, what have you learned through this time over the last 7 or 8 months?
So I would say auditioning during a pandemic is a lot different, especially in LA and New York. LA and New York, it's typically in-person auditions. The Atlanta market, I believe, is 85% self-tapes. So I don't think that it has changed that much from the Atlanta perspective. But LA, you are used to going in and you have that 30 to 60 seconds with casting. They know that you're not a diva, a jerk. You can kind of just talk to them for a few seconds and really get them to trust you as an actor and as a person, that you go on set and you're not, going to be a jerk to people, that you're actually a sane, rational person. So thankfully, most of the casting offices that I've auditioned for, they've already seen me in person. So I don't have to go over that hurdle. But actors who were coming into LA probably the year before the pandemic, if they haven't been in offices, that's really difficult, because an office is going to go with people that they know. They don't want to send somebody up and then somebody's crazy pants on set. So I don't mind doing auditions at home. I have a setup, that's fine. But I do really miss that in-person sort of connection that you get, because in this industry, you don't get a lot of that. So to be able to go in the office and just say hi for just a quick second, it means a lot. In a business that moves so fast and people are expendable, it really means a lot.
Yeah, and you may have hit on this just a minute or so ago, but what actually brought you into the entertainment industry, and why did you initially move to television and film after your military service?
I have a story that I share, and other actors have said, you really should talk about that. And vets have said, you should talk about that. I'm very transparent about it because I feel like there's a lot to learn from it.
Mm.
I was very ill when I got out of the military. I was sick from the anthrax vaccinations. Very few people got sick, but the people who got sick really did.
Mm.
And I remember a friend of mine had a commercial airing, and I was too sick to the point I could not work. I could not hold down a 9 to 5. And I said, how did you book that commercial? How much did it pay? Because I thought working in TV, you make so much money. And he said, I got paid $400. And I said, what? I said, how many hours of work? He said, 5. I said, okay, I'm not really into this actor thing, but if I can do this and help provide for my family, I could work one day and make what I would make in a week at that time. Yeah. So that's actually how I got into it. I was also dealing with the aftermath of an MST, and I had a lot of stuff that was going on. I was, understandably upset from all of that. And then my Navy career ending, 25 years too soon. I had wanted to stay in the Navy for a career, and it ended up not happening. And I got out after 5 years. So Hollywood was the one place that applauded mental illness. They loved, the show of emotion, and they loved the vulnerability. And I could either go to the VA and roll the dice there with a therapist, or I could kind of work through these issues on set. And I'll tell you, that's not recommended by mental health professionals, but it was the one place that I could go where if I was upset or I could cry easily, they would applaud it, as opposed to saying, oh, you need to be strong and vet. And they would just say, oh, it's brilliant, you're a genius. When it really wasn't that. I was just trying to work through the issues that I had as a result of serving.
So do you think that, when you think back on not only the thought process of doing that, of trying to find something cathartic or trying to find a way almost to heal yourself, any other way that, or when you did it feel like, hey, this is working? I found something that I enjoy. I found something that I'm confident in again, and I want to continue doing this.
Definitely. And I remember I had done a video for the National Guard about sexual assault prevention. And I remember a fellow survivor who I'd known had said to me, I don't know how you do that. Don't you get re-triggered? And I said, no, because for me, doing this, I know is going to help people watching the video, women or men who may have experienced this, on how to come forward and how this is supposed to be done. So I knew I was helping people, but also in that moment when I was on set, I had complete control over it. If I wasn't comfortable during the take, I could cut it. I could tell the director, I'm not going to do this. That's not the experience I had during the assault. There was no cut. So for me, it was very empowering. And a lot of other people have said, I don't see it that way. I don't understand how you could see it that way. That's okay. I don't expect them to understand. For me, it actually was very helpful. And I want to continue to be a voice for those people who can't necessarily, aren't at a point in their lives where they can talk about it without being overly emotional. Thankfully, I'm past that. And I want to speak on behalf of people and hopefully make some real change both in the military and outside.
Yeah, well, Jennifer, let me just stop you right there and thank you for being courageous and coming forward and talking about it, and then coming on our program too to discuss, to advocate for it, to advocate for victims, as well as talking about the way that you've processed it in the way that you have, almost used it to try to move beyond that terrible experience. It's an incredibly brave thing to do, and I know you have used a lot of that military, the difficulties and the struggle and the trauma that you faced in the military, and trying to advocate for veterans. And one thing that you did recently was you helped, if I have this correctly, you helped produce the VA spot called "Make the Connection." Is that correct?
So the VA spots, they're through Make the Connection, and I've executive produced the last two, and we're in pre-production on a third.
They are really incredible spots, I guess, if you want to call them. They're really incredible videos. They are much more humanizing, I think you would say. Can you tell us a little bit about how you made those and the process of Make the Connection?
Sure. So I had produced on my own a series of 15 PSAs highlighting women veterans, and that was because I didn't see us represented, and a lot of people would say to me, you just don't look like a veteran. So I really wanted to show people that veterans are simply a microcosm of society. We look like everyone else, and I think that those PSAs did that. At the same time, I was technical advising for the VA, so they would bring me in on set, and they would say, from a veteran's perspective, what needs to be changed. So things. I would make sure the uniforms were okay. I would make sure that the voice was where it needed to be, that they were talking to us instead of at us. And eventually, I was working on a project. I had worked with several directors. There were a set of directors, the Thackrell brothers. I love them to death. Their executive producer left and went on to start her own company. And I remember they called me one day and they said, you've been a great technical advisor. You've been here kind of since the beginning. For the last few years, and we would love to bring you on as executive producer for these spots. And I was really blown away. I am the first veteran, male or female, who has executive produced these spots, and it does mean a lot. When I'm in the room with the ad agency, the client, the VA itself, the entire team, they are relying on me and the voices of other veterans who I bring in and the client brings in to really get these spots to where they need to be. With that being said, the VA is far from perfect, but how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I'm happy to be part of a small change, and hopefully that can lead to bigger changes.
Absolutely. So can you maybe share an enjoyable memory, or meeting a celebrity on set that you really admired, or maybe even an executive or a producer? I think the entertainment industry for people who are outside of it is somewhat mystical. It is something most of us don't get to see inside. So could you maybe take us inside and share some fun memories that you have from being on set?
Sure, I'll give you three very quick stories. So the first one was I had shot a movie with Daniel Radcliffe, and of course everyone knows him as Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So I admittedly still have never seen the Harry Potter movies.
You've never seen any of them?
No, I've never seen them. I've never read them.
Okay.
So I went on set not really being a fangirl, just knowing that he was a very accomplished actor. So I remember I went on set and he comes up to me and he says in this British accent, and I'm not going to imitate it because I don't do accents, but he said, hello, Jennifer. He said, I'm Dan. And I was like, holy crap, this is Daniel Radcliffe, this is Dan. And I just found it so incredible to be on a first name basis with somebody who was a megastar. So he was wonderful. He was kind. He was amazing. There was another time I had taken a year-long class with James Franco. And it's funny because you go from seeing somebody who's an A-list actor in all of your favorite movies, and then all of a sudden he's your teacher and he's in front of you. So I found that interesting, watching him and smoking his cigarettes and drinking his black coffee and kind of the brilliance that is James Franco. That's something I never thought I'd experience. And then the third thing that kind of sticks with me is sitting in the hair and makeup trailer for Stranger Things 2, and this very handsome, vivacious young man comes in, and I didn't know who he was this time. And it's Baker Montgomery, who plays Billy. And he sits down next to me and he's having his mullet glued on. And I just remember thinking, I don't know who this person is. And at the time he was the Red Power Ranger, but I did not know that. I just thought he's a star in the making. He was just so kind and courteous, and he gave off this sort of glow about him, and he made you feel good even being in the room. And working with him that season was just incredible. His work ethic, his humility, he's wonderful. So it's been strange for me meeting these people in real life who you see on the TV, and then all of a sudden they're in front of you. It's a bit surreal.
Yeah. Is acting something you feel like you actually did have to learn, like going to those classes, or is it something that you feel like it's like on the job training?
You know, there's different kinds of actors. For me, I already had a baseline level of talent. And I think that's because I was not afraid to be vulnerable. I was not afraid to cry, to show my emotions, to use my life experience. With that being said, all actors need training, because when you go on set, you have to know lenses, camera angles, and how things are. And if you don't know those things, you can have a lot of raw talent, but you're going to waste time and money because they're asking you to do something you don't know. There's a big difference in acting if you're doing the master shot and if you're doing the close-up. You have to know that. So actors who come to me and say, oh, I'm just great naturally, that's wonderful. And you can cite the one actor who you know who has never had a class, who's never taken an acting class. But at the end of the day, even the most famous people work with acting coaches. And it's because when you step on set, if you are not 110% prepared, you are costing everyone money. And if you're costing everyone money, you won't come back.
This is a total novice question. Do you have to remember all of your lines before you go to set?
So nowadays, you actually have to be off book for the audition. So that's not, technically they can't require it because of union rules. But if you show up to an audition and your head is buried in the page, you can guarantee that you will not book that. So typically, I will have a 3 to 4 page guest star audition, and I have to turn that in within 24 hours. I have, so I have to memorize, have it taped, have it uploaded, everything within 24 hours. Sometimes when I did my guest star for Hawaii Five-0, I got my side, which is that small part of the script, at 9:30 p.m. My audition was 9:30 a.m. and it was 2 hours away because of LA traffic. So I left my house at 6:30 a.m. I worked it for 2 hours the night before, 2 hours in the car on the way there, went in, did it, and booked. It's hard. If you don't have a very good memory, it is a very, very difficult job. And I am not America's Next Best Memorizer. I'll tell you that. I'm just not.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. I have such a hard time remembering. I mean, people ask me to do things, or the wife asked me to do something, and I feel like 30 minutes later, it's just like in one ear and it's just totally out the other, right? And so I was like, man, I don't know if I could go on set, like you said, where the lights are on, the cameras are on, everyone's standing around, they're looking at you. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to remember that line that I probably said 200 times yesterday, but I just don't have that ability to regurgitate that information that way.
And sometimes you'll go on set and they'll say, hey, we had a last minute rewrite. That will just turn my stomach into knots. When I shot Hawaii Five-0, they didn't have any rewrites, but they said, hey, normally we shoot the series regulars first and we shoot the guest actors second, so you can kind of get into it. Well, they had a giant C-130 or a large cargo plane, and they said, we can shoot you second, but we have to move the plane. And I said, no, it's fine. So I shot my scene first, which, no pressure. But yeah, it's difficult because you're acting with these series regulars who are famous people, and you're like, I don't know how this is going to go, because normally you go second. So you're like, just going to go for it and just, hope that it works out. And it did, because for that particular character, it was so me. She was military, and so it was so me, and it worked. But it's nerve-wracking. It's not for the faint of heart.
No, my hands almost get sweaty, kind of like it's like doing a school project where you have to get up and you got to, talk in front of the class or something like that. And then you forget your notes. And, but anyways, I'm interested to know about the show that's on right now. It came out in 2019. You are the host of CW's Mysteries Decoded. Tell us about the show and what you love about it.
So the show came about because in real life, I'm a licensed private investigator. And so when I'm not working in TV and film, I take on the cases that I choose to take on. I don't take on everything because I don't like drama, but the cases I choose to take on, I do. So it was just one of those things where they were looking for a purple magical unicorn, and I happened to be it. They were looking for a private investigator who happened to be female, who worked in television. That's no one, basically. So I went in and I interviewed, and it was supposed to be a 1 hour special. We went, we shot it with my investigative partner, Ryan Sprague. We looked at what happened in Roswell in 1947. And then it got ordered to series online. And then it got ordered to series on the actual CW. And then it got picked up for a second season. And then it got picked up again after COVID. So it's really been one of these things where none of that was supposed to happen. It was supposed to be a 1 hour special. And here we are, we're shooting season 3. So it's been a whirlwind, to put it lightly.
Well, congratulations on that. And can you kind of explain, how when the show, from the incubation period, right, where you are told about this is the idea, then you go to the audition, then they tell you, hey, it's going to be an hour-long special, and then it's like it becomes a snowball almost, right? Like, what does that feel like? Are you getting phone calls with people who are saying, hey, we're thinking about trying to push this more? Do you advocate for it? Do you call somebody up and say, hey, I'd love to do this again? What is that process like, and how does that feel watching the show kind of mature in front of your eyes?
Well, Hollywood's one of those weird things where you will have 100 conversations about something and nothing will materialize. So thankfully, by that point, I'd been in the business about 5 years. And so I knew going into it, everybody makes promises and nothing ever happens. So I didn't get my hopes up. What happened with that show was it was Ryan's special, and they brought in some women, and for whatever reason, the network was like, this is the person. So they brought me in 3 days before we left to go shoot. They brought me in. And I remember I thought, this company will never bring me back in because I'm very candid, and I just rub people the wrong way sometimes. I don't bite my tongue. And I remember I said, ooh, that's the company where I was kind of a little bit too candid. Maybe I was just sassy the right amount. They brought me in, and then they said, okay, we want to book you, and we're leaving for Roswell in 3 days. And I was like, what? So we went down and we shot it, and it was edited. And I remember I was in New Zealand and it premiered, and it had really good ratings. And then that's when they ordered it to series. And then at the end of the season, I went out to breakfast with the executive producers, and they said, hey, so only 2 of the CW's freshman shows got picked up. And I was like, oh, that's great news for them. I'm really happy. And they said, well, we're one of them. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
I mean, I don't, so you just go with it. It's hard because I have to leave my kids to film, but it's an amazing opportunity because I'm paid to travel all over the place and investigate these things I would never have the opportunity to in my practice: historical mysteries, paranormal, true crime. So it's really been just an amazing experience. And we were still able to shoot during COVID because we did a lot of it during Zoom, using Zoom technology. So we were able to shoot a lot, thankfully.
No, that's really incredible, and congratulations on that as well. Does the work that you do? I mean, I was going to start reading off so many of the other shows that you've been on and specials that you've appeared in, but for your industry, essentially, is your work your resume, or are you actually having to go out and create opportunities for yourself? Or does the show becomes your headshot, it becomes your bio, it becomes your resume, etc.? Or are you still having essentially to work the phones or to build a network and that sort of thing?
I always tell people, especially creatives, that you have to make your own work. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was not being called in for military, active duty, veterans, police officers. They just said, you don't look to be this type. So I was tired of hearing that. I went out, I wrote a scene. I went and shot the scene, had it professionally done. I put it on my reel, and immediately I started getting military auditions. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to book the role, but I started getting auditions because then they could see me. I had to kind of do the work. They could see me as military. And that to me was really important because veterans and active duty service members, I don't feel that we are portrayed fairly on screen very much. And when you continue to put actors in those positions who don't know anything about our community, it just perpetuates stereotypes. Yeah. So when I went into shoot Hawaii FiveO, I remember the director, lovely, lovely man, saying to me, you're the subject matter expert. Tell us how we can do better. And there were a few things where, the word was coffin, and we changed it to casket because Dracula lies in a coffin, not our nation's heroes. Yeah. The small things like that. I remember I was supposed to be a colonel. I wasn't old enough, so they made me a lieutenant colonel.
Mm.
They listened because it mattered and they wanted to do it right. And without representation in the media of veterans and service members, it's just the same old stereotype. So it's super important that we are in the industry if we want our stories told accurately and if we want them told well.
Yeah. So one thing that you just hit on there, which I think is really incredible, and I want to just park here for a minute because I had a conversation on the previous show where we talked about the um, the belief about what veterans think opportunities are, or those in the armed forces, what they think their opportunities are going to be. The thing that makes those opportunities materialize is what you just did, which is seeing that there's probably work out there, but actually having to do a little bit of legwork, having to go shoot it yourself, having to put it on your reel. That is essentially the bridge between, I think there's a lot of people who want to hire veterans. I think there's a lot of businesses that want to hire veterans, whether you're a welder or you're a banker. But you have to go find those opportunities. And what you just illustrated there is the perfect example of it, because you couldn't just sit around and say, you know, woe is me, there are not the jobs here. You actually created it and you're like, hey, this is it. Come look at this.
Mhm. And I think it's important that we create our own opportunities. A lot of actors will get agents and they'll say, oh, I'm good, I don't have to do anything. No,
Yeah.
no, you still have to do 90% of the work. So I think overall society means well, they do want to help veterans, but we have to expect a hand up, not a hand out. So you have to do the foundational work, and that's fine. A lot of times if you do the foundational work, people will want to help. And all the time people will ask me, how can I help veterans? And instead of saying thank you for your service, I give them a list of tangible things that they can do. And 95% of the time, people are happy to do that. They're not offended. They're happy. They want to go beyond thank you for your service.
Yeah. Now I'm glad you said that, because I see that gap, right? I see the desire from the person in the armed forces who's about to get out. I see the gap between where they are and where the opportunity is, and what you just talked about making sure that the people who are on the other side are giving a hand up, and that the veteran is also reaching their hand out and going to seek the opportunities. A couple more things here. To me, again, as a novice and from an outsider, acting as a profession is an industry of rejection, and you do get turned down for roles, and it can be frustrating. Can you either confirm or deny that maybe that stereotype, or and if it is, can you tell us a little bit about how you are able to overcome some of those rejections and then move on to the next role?
I would say if you're a masochist, come to Hollywood, because 95% of the time you won't even hear no, you just won't hear anything, which is even ruder. To be fair, casting doesn't have time to reach out to people, but there's times I'll audition. You know, the big audition I had, that will probably go to a name actor, somebody who, you know, is an A-list celebrity, but to be able, and I knew that going into it when I auditioned, but having the ability to audition for a project that large, I was very, very thankful to have it. So as an actor, you never gauge where you're at by no's, because no never really means no. It could mean maybe later, the producer's girlfriend booked it, you're too tall, you look like my ex-wife, you're going to make the male lead look short, whatever. You don't know, and it's really none of your business why it's a no. The way that you gauge the opportunities is, are casting directors calling me back in? Am I getting callbacks? Am I being brought in for other things? If you go into an office and you're never brought back, your audition straight up stunk, and you need to go back to training. So I don't take it personally. I live by the mantra that other people's opinion of me is none of my business, and it's worked out really well in this industry.
Yeah. So you also appeared here. It says you won the showcase of The Price is Right in 2015 on their annual Veterans Day episode. And you also won a segment for Let's Make a Deal in 2019. What's it like to be on a game show?
It's amazing. And I remember The Price is Right. I was going to cancel the last minute. And I thought, no, I have to go, because a bunch of my friends were relying on me to go. And I was not surprised when they called me up. I was surprised when I won the showcase, but I was not surprised when they called me up. And then for Let's Make a Deal, it was amazing. And Wayne Brady was there, and I had to ask to hug him because it's Wayne Brady, right?
He's a legend, man. I remember watching him as a little kid on Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yes.
That's it, right? Yeah, he was. I love that stand-up. But anyways.
Oh, he's amazing. Game shows are difficult because on The Price is Right, you can't hear anything. Drew's talking and you can't hear. So when people do this and they look out to the audience, it's because you can't hear anything. So when people give a stupid answer that everybody goes, just know that we can't hear anything at all. On when I was on Let's Make a Deal, everything is going so fast. You're having to make these decisions and it's so loud and everybody's screaming. So just be kind when you critique people because it's difficult. It's almost like live TV because there kind of are no redos. Even people who fall on the stage, they still air that. There's no redo. So just be kind in your critique.
Well, I want to pivot here real quickly, if you don't mind me asking. I saw in one of your social media feeds, I think it was on Twitter, you went out and gave blood recently, and so much on our program. We love talking about not just the professional career afterwards, but really the continued service that we really try to advocate and hold up people like yourself who are out in the community, who are advocating for veterans in the industry. Can you tell us about why you gave blood and why that's important to you?
So for me, I would go to Africa every year. And so I wasn't able to donate blood for probably about 3, 4, 5 years. So when I started donating again, one, I'm O negative, so anyone can take my blood. So it's important that I donate. Second of all, I am part of the 10% that has not been exposed to cytomegalovirus, which you can become exposed through a variety of ways. But because of that, I'm in the 10% where my blood can be used for preemies. So that's super, super important. And I don't like needles and I don't like sitting there having it done. I actually kind of dread it the days going up to it. But I live by the mantra, if not you, then who? And I do feel like it is very, very important. And I think if I was in that position where I needed blood, I would be so, so thankful for the person who did it for me. So it is important. And I just get over the needles thing and I just do it. And I focus on the juice and cookies afterwards.
There you go. That's really incredible. Thank you for doing that. So if I can ask you, are you able to actually watch television and film as entertainment, or does it stress you out? Like, do you, when you're watching other actors, actresses, you're watching the shows, when you're watching, are you like, oh, they produced this terribly, or this looks terribly, or are you actually able to just, turn on The Office and watch The Office and zone out?
I'm the worst actor because I don't watch anything hardly unless I'm auditioning for it. There's like those things on Facebook where people say, how many series have you seen? And most people, I think there were 100, most people said they'd seen 50. I had seen 11, and this was the 80s on. I don't watch it. One, I don't have the attention span for it. Two, I'm watching it and I see a friend pop up and all of a sudden I'm like, that's not the killer, that's my friend. And third of all, I'm noticing every little thing. So if somebody's talking from the side and their mouth is not matching the audio, I'm getting annoyed. I'm constantly looking for grips and gaffers, and it's I don't. When I do watch something, the last season of True Detective, the first season and the third season, absolutely amazing. When I actually watch something and I get into it, it is very, very, very well done. Breaking Bad, Mad Men, but it's far.
Do you have a show that you're watching right now that you would maybe recommend that you're enjoying, or you stick with those Breaking Bad, Mad Men? Is there one or two others in there?
No, I'll say, and this is sorry to all the actors because there's no actors in this. I started watching the Unsolved Mysteries reboot because I'm a private investigator and that's interesting to me. It's very, very, very well done. And I was worried about how they were going to do it because nobody can compare to Robert Stack. And I think that they did an incredible job doing the show without a host, but still kind of honoring him in a way. And I just think it's really, really well done. I will say this, there's only an hour for each episode. Definitely go into Reddit and do some deep dives because there's a lot of stuff they don't cover on the show. And for all the naysayers to say, they didn't talk about this, guys, it's an hour-long show. I get the same critique for my shows. We have 41 minutes. We just talk about what we can and everything else goes on the cutting room floor.
I was gonna say, so is it really frustrating then as an actor to go do a ton of work and then you realize by the end of it, they only use, like, how much do they use of the content that you guys go out and create?
Oh, for Mysteries Decoded, we probably have enough for 3 or 4 episodes and we end up using one. That's not frustrating to me. It's frustrating to me when people come up to me and say, you didn't do your due diligence. I did, it's just not in the episode. So that's kind of the only negative trolling that I get online. I will say that I did a lot of work. I worked for a week on a show called Timeless on NBC, and it's an amazing show, and I was such a fangirl. And then almost all of it hit the cutting room floor. Not just mine, but like the whole storyline. That's frustrating because you're like, I had lines, and you just look like an extra, and people are like, you want me to tune in to watch your extra work? You're like, I wasn't an extra, I had lines. And people think it gets cut because you're like a bad actor, but that's generally not why it gets cut. There's a bunch of reasons why it gets cut. So that's frustrating. But it's part of the business. It is what it is.
Yeah, well, you've certainly shown a really, I think, a great light on the industry, and I love the concept of just like, we talk again on the show so much about trying to balance your technical skills and your craft. Like you talked about where to look at the camera, the lighting, how to interact, and then also the personal skills that you have to have for every job in almost the more art of acting. But I certainly think so much of what you talked about today in terms of auditioning and building a profile and reaching out and networking with people in the community, creating opportunities is really something that it resonates with me, and I think it really resonates, and it will resonate with the veterans community at large, regardless of their industry. But I just wanted to ask you before we close it out here today, is there anything that you would like to close this off with, something that we didn't get to hit on that you'd like to leave the audience with?
I would just say that people ask me why I stay in the industry, because it can tend to be a little anti-military, anti-law enforcement, anti-first responder. To me, representing veterans and service members on camera means so much. The opportunity means so much. So I stick with it because I like to have the platform to talk to people about veteran issues. And I'm very, very thankful for that platform. So if you have supported my career and continue to do so, I appreciate that, because together we are all stronger. Our community is just that, a community. It's not about me as an actor, it's about our community of veterans.
Absolutely. Well, Jennifer, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on the program with us today and sharing your story.
Thank you, Dan.
Absolutely. On behalf of Chairman George B. Bush, our staff at the Texas Veterans Land Board, meet us back here on Monday, and we'll continue to promote the success stories and the achievements of veterans in Texas and across the country. I'm Dan Hamilton. We'll see you next week.
Follow us on Instagram at Voices of Vets, on Twitter at Voice of Veterans, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Voices of Veterans. To hear more, please visit voicesofveterans.org. Join us in sharing the success stories of Texas veterans. Thank you for joining us for the Next Gen Warrior podcast.